Greetings, I am Tom Earl. On this week's episode, I interview Tira Yasmine as we talk about recipes for magic. Check it out. Greetings, I am Tom Earl. Welcome to the celebration. As you know, this is my year of grace. We know you could be anywhere, so the fact that you are here today sharing your greatest gifts, your time, and your energy means the world to me. On this week's episode, I have a brilliant, creative, and amazing guest. She goes by the name of Tira Yasmine. How you doing today?
I'm doing good, Tom. How are you?
I'm doing amazing. I know that you have done and do many amazing things, like you're a poet, published author, a transformative life coach. You design amazing jewelry, and you're an entrepreneur. And I was wondering, what else can you share as an introduction for those who might not know who you are?
So something else that I would share as an introduction for people that don't know who I am, that could be a very, I guess, broad. That could be a very broad thing. I think that where you have started is a great starting and talking point to begin to kind of share more of who I am in depth and how all those things cohesively align, with who I am. I think, I like to say before all of those things, I am human. I am a servant. And yeah, yep.
Which one of these came first? The poetry, the authorship, the coaching? Which one did you start to dive into first?
So the poetry is what came first. I turned 38 this year, and I've been writing since I was 10. I lost my father when I was 10 years old, and I remember being mute. Like, I remember not talking. It was hard to talk about how I felt, so I just began to write. And that was the birthing of who I would later become as a writer, as a poet, and as an author.
For the poetry, the writer, when did the evolution go from maybe you were just writing your poems for yourself to having an intention of sharing them out loud?
I was 26, right? A long time. I had, shared poems, like in the church setting, very basic, it's the church's anniversary or the holiday is coming up, write a poem, share a poem. But in terms of performing in front of a live audience, in what was quote unquote, the secular environment, that happened when I was 26 years old. That was Father's Day of 2006. I wanted to do something on that day that would honor my father, and still edify my spirit, because I understand that some wounds are a lot deeper than others. And so it takes time to learn how to cope with, I don't want to say that losing a parent is traumatic. And I was trying not to use the word trauma, but it's traumatic. And so it takes time to learn how to cope with that in a healthy way. So I think that in the beginning, some of the things that I used to cope were self-destructive. And so I was praying and looking for a way to be able to to find a way to cope that was more healthy, that would be of edification, like to who I was. I didn't want to really be in those self-destructive patterns anymore. And so I got dressed up. I was like, on this day, I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to be sad. I'm not going to be, depressed. I'm going to do something that I feel like will bring me some joy. And I put on this cute little dress and some high heels, and I went to this poetry event here in the city of Cleveland. I'm a Cleveland, Ohio native. And at that time, we had a venue called the Kamikaze. It was a very popular venue, and that is where a lot of poets in the city, that is where we got our start. And that is also where we met a lot of that was the beginning of us meeting a lot of other amazing artists, poets specifically, that were already making a living, and doing poetry full time. And my life has never been the same.
How have you found that writing and poetry does work with processing and healing? Have you found it to be a tool that does that?
Yes. I have definitely found that writing is, for me, is very necessary in processing. And not just writing poetry, just even the simple art of journaling, keeping a journal, helps me organize my thoughts and my life and my plans and my goals. So yeah, I'm always writing something. It may not be a piece of poetry, but I am always putting something on paper for processing. Yes, absolutely. I don't think that poetry can always take the place. I think it's important to say this because as artists, a lot of us, when we're writing from strange places, or, from painful places, right? From traumatic experiences. And one thing that I also learned is that although it is therapeutic, it does not replace the need for therapy if, writing is not enough. Yes.
So much truth that it can process, but sometimes you got to go a little bit deeper and get some actual tools you can use. Most certainly. Well said. Well, I feel we've kind of set the stage. Would you like to share one of your poems with the good folks listening?
Sure. And so I think today, to start, I would like to, because I understand the intensity, right, of performing. So I want to really start off super strong. I want to give the people something to look forward to. So I like to start off by reading a poem. And yeah, I think I want to start off by just reading a piece here. And so this piece is called Bold and Beautiful. Between my wide hazel eyes, I hold secrets of blissful vision. I am a heart-shaped tree outlined with love. Left bare in the fall, the world has seen me naked. Keep your gaze upon as the universe cloaks me in new dress to spring forward into summer rain that will refresh my soul. Winter is far gone. The peculiar understand growing alone. Dirt, I don't brush it off. I need it on me, for it is the only way to cultivate strong limbs and beautiful leaves.
Yes. And that was in one of your published books?
It is. So this particular book is called Sunny Side Up. And So social media, right? This is no longer on my website. I'm rebuilding TiraYasmine.com because I've made some name changes that I'm sure we'll get into really soon here in the interview. And so I'm rebuilding the new site. So the book is not on there, but I do have copies of the book. IG Tira Yasmine, Tira Yasmine, Yasmine, and the same for Facebook. To purchase copies of the book, they are $15, and I always ship for free, just as a token of appreciation.
Only $15.
Only $15. That's so reasonable.
Oh. And for folks listening, tommerl.com/Tira, Tira, tommerl.com/Tira is where all the links mentioned in this interview will be found. Let's jump right in then. We were talking beforehand about your name when I said, which name do you want me to use to introduce yourself? And you were starting to talk about the journey you've been going through. Do you mind sharing some of that with everybody?
Sure. So when I first started performing poetry in 2006, the first time I signed the list, I signed my name, Tira. And of course, you get Tierra, Tara, right? Everything but Tira. So I was like, okay, well, they're butchering my name first. Not in the worst way, but like, oh my God, they can't say my name correctly. And then I was like, but nobody goes by their real name in here, right? Like everybody has like a different name. Wow, that's kind of cool, right? And then you learn the lingo. Oh, those are pen names. So when you're not writing, then who are you? It kind of gets intriguing. And it's a little mysterious. Even in understanding that, all of these things cultivate who we are. But I just thought it was kind of cool that people had pen names, and just listening to their stories as to why they had them and why they decided on the name that they decided on. So after a few times of going to the venue, I decided that I wanted a pen name. And so one day I was on my way home and I got in the car and I just was praying and I just was saying, okay, what is my pen name supposed to be? Like, who am I, as I journey on this stage, right? It was a new season for me. I had never done that before. This was a new group of people I had never been around. And of course, I never really got the opportunity to wear the mask around them because my vulnerability was definitely showing when I walked into their doors. Like they knew that I was broken and I had been through some things, but they could also tell that I had a very powerful gift to speak life into all of the dead situations going on in my life. So I just kept hearing like free. And then I kept saying, but what about free, right? Like it wasn't deep enough for me. I don't know. I just was trying to go deeper. Like, okay, free what? And then like I heard some more words like finally resurrected, embracing the everlasting. And I was like, oh, okay, well, who is that? Right? Like, that's not me. And then it was like, no, but that is what you're becoming. And so I took on the name Free, all caps, because it served as an acronym for finally resurrected, embracing the everlasting. And I always say that I felt like the name was twofold. Like I was free to free those, under the sound of my voice, right? It was a two-way street. I was free to free. And so that is how I got the name Free. And I used that name up until this year, actually, in 2018. I actually haven't been on a stage like for a featured performance in over a year. I went to one open mic this year, and I went because my mentee was performing and I wanted to support her. And so there were a lot of younger poets in the audience that had never heard me before or that were requesting to hear me. And so I decided to get on stage and do a couple of poems for them. And it just felt good to not have all of that pressure, right? Of you have to perform well. Yeah, it was a good feeling to have that type of perspective and that type of energy. However, I've still been writing this year. I have a 7-poem series for the balance of my chakras. Like, I have a very interesting story as to how I became a certified Reiki master, right? But still to this day, I have never practiced Reiki on anyone outside of myself because I wanted to use it for a tool of self-healing. So I wrote a series of poems that basically tells my chakra journey in color. And so I'll release those when I feel like it's time for me to release them. And I like to release them through video because I don't really have like anything that's more like a motion picture. Everything, it's really a book, or, you know, you got the 2-minute video, but I want it to be more like a small film, like a short film. So, so I did still write in 2018. But however, because of everything that I feel like I've been journeying through for the last few years, I felt like now I embody, you know, that freedom that I was trying to gain. And so I don't really need that reminder of being free, right? I understand, you know, my purpose and how I pursue passion. And I understand the power of my voice, the power of, you know, anyone's voice when you are just speaking out on things that matter to you. And so that's one side to changing my name. So the other piece is I feel like the more I heal, like the more layers I've shed through performance, my passion for poetry began to change. And so then I felt like maybe it was just a tool that God was using to help me heal. And then when I got to this certain place in my life, it's not that I don't need to write anymore, or that I don't need to heal anymore, but it's just my process is different. I have new passions. Like, I'm a jewelry artist, and the goal with my jewelry brand is to somehow end up in high fashion, which is just another layer and another level of creativity for me. So I've had some really awesome experiences over the last few years with my jewelry brand that have kind of pulled me away from the stage. So that's the second thing. The third piece is that I believe that my last name is my slave name. And I grew up in the Baptist faith, but in my adult life, I began to incorporate and embrace Islamic principles into my life. I have actually taken Shahada before. And so I feel like my last name is my slave name, basically. And I do desire to be married one day. And so I felt like releasing my last name, Tira Yasmine, it's more gentle. It's softer. It's lighter on the tongue, right? There's a lot of beauty in that name. And so when I started rebranding in 2018, what my message would say, it would say Tira Yasmine, the name my mother gave me, right? And so I just started using my first name and my middle name. So my first name, now let's talk about what's in a name, because we already have free, right? So here's some power. So Tira is a city in Jerusalem and a language and a village of people in the Sudan. And then and then Yasmin, of course we pronounce it Yasmin, is a spin-off of jasmine, which basically is a beautiful flower in Arabic. So I felt like that name, the name my mother gave me, truly embodies who I have evolved into. I will always be free. But Tira Yasmine, I don't know. That's who I
Mm. There's so much power and stories and emotion in a name.
am.
And so I really appreciate you taking the time to really kind of share with us all of the reflections and journeys and conclusions you've been coming to throughout
Thank you.
this year. Really appreciate that. One theme that you mentioned even before we started, and then you mentioned it again with your middle name, is the word gentle, that you are in a place where you want to read poetry that has like a more gentle approach, and you're saying Yasmine sounds more gentle. When did you start to feel a calling towards or a resonance with that kind of energy?
When I was living in Las Vegas, and I moved to Las Vegas October 31st of 2016 and stayed there for 7 months. So I wasn't even there for a whole year. I went there because I got the opportunity to run a jewelry kiosk during the holiday season for my jewelry brand to test the market. And I got so much more than I bargained for. When I went to Las Vegas, I was also ending a very interesting relationship. And so I needed that time alone. I needed time to heal. It was more like an extended vacation, to say the least. And that is when I realized where I needed to heal. And those rough edges that I still needed to smooth out because of my own trauma or because of my own pain that I had just basically learned to suppress. And so I started practicing non-invasive forms of healing. I've definitely had my seasons of therapy, per se. I'm not afraid of that word or that topic. There are different levels to that, and I think we all need someone to talk to. I also spent 10 years working in social services with foster care children, and spent some time being a case manager as well. So I was very familiar with the system and how things, work in the system. And so it's beautiful to be able to kind of release to someone that doesn't have the opportunity to be biased, right? So when you hear it from someone that you don't always hear it from, it's easier to digest sometimes, right? Like you can know that you're stubborn and maybe your life isn't changing because you're stubborn. And then your friends are like, yeah, you're stubborn. And then your family's like, oh my God, you're so stubborn. And you're like, but I'm not stubborn. And then someone else that's not biased, right? It's like, you just might be a little stubborn. And then you're just kind of like, okay, fine, I'm stubborn. The humility kicks in and then you fix, your stubbornness, So I've learned the benefit of just keeping a diverse circle of people around me. I'm definitely surrounded by diversity. Yeah, it's to be appreciated.
Yeah, most definitely. Would you mind sharing your second poem with us?
Sure. So this one is called Stain Sheets. This is probably one of the most beautiful poems I have ever written. Shout out to the muse. Pressed together, our lips is where the Holy Bible and Quran meet. Sugar sweet, tongue twist. We speak wisdom, knowledge, difference, and common belief. Us is no coincidental experience. You are my most powerful human experience. Sacred in my getting back to Eden. You are my Adam. I would never serve you disobedience from these anointed hands. Satan and his army get no love in my garden. For you, I don't need any leaves. I'm stripping down to my soul. For you have ignited laughter in my psyche. A newfound joy never felt before. Thankful am I for these moments in time. Therefore, I will embrace them, enjoy them in the now. I put my track shoes on the lawn with yesterday's trash. Today is a new dawn. Not asking for your heart, just your surrenderance to this process of unveiling with no force or pressure. Realizing if we do everything now, there will be nothing to do later. Let us flow, grow, blossom. God makes all things and people beautiful in his time. Your words, touch, and smile penetrate the deepest part of my existence. I am a fan of your fingertips that tickle. Your calm, gentle aura creates such a serene energy in my space. It causes my lungs to expand. Breathe. Claustrophobia is done. My fear to be close has been replaced with faith. Asking God to protect my heart as I walk through this fire. Refined will be the reward. A fine diamond I will shine iridescent, and in my gleam will be your reflection. Who would have knew an innocent trick to make dreams come true would plant such a potent seed of intimacy? February will never be the same. Thanks to you and tiramisu, I promise dessert never tasted so good. I'm hooked. There are many fish in the sea, but I got caught on your line and you're in mine. When stormy clouds align in your life, let me be your sunshine. For you are worthy of love, so therefore, my beloved, don't deem yourself as being unlovable. Soothing is your voice to my ears. Your scent is everlasting. You have stained my sheets with your presence, and I don't want to wash or wipe you out. Thank you.
Yes. You genuinely seem to enjoy reading that.
Yeah, that was a very interesting. The Muse is still a really good friend of mine. And although we never got married, right? That is okay. And I still like enjoy and remember all of those powerful experiences and all of those emotions that are there. And I wrote that poem, Tom, in 2009. That poem's almost 10 years old. Yeah. Yep.
One theme that I've heard come up throughout this interview is God and spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
What is God?
What is God? God to me, right? Because I do understand and I respect the fact that we do not all relate to God the same. And I think that there are many roads to one destination, right? And so what is God? God is spirit. And that spirit, although omnipresent, is present, well and alive inside of me. So therefore, there are remnants, right, of God in me. And it took me a long time to embrace the concept and the ideology that God is not out there. God is in here. And so when I realized that God was in and not out, my life changed tremendously. Like, yeah, it just, I changed. I evolved. And so God is spirit. I am learning to get better with at this point in time, right? Because these poems, again, they were written, right? Like some years ago. But today, I try to not incorporate that spirit. I don't identify it to be male or to be female, because to me, God is spirit, and you cannot contribute male or female attributes to spirit.
No doubt, no doubt. What nourishes and fulfills you?
Oh, that's a great question. It's very thought provoking, because I think sometimes, we're nourished and we're fulfilled, but sometimes we don't take the time to like list those things that nourish and fulfill us. So one would be life, just being alive and breathing well and alive. I have learned to talk to my body. I have learned to thank my body. Gratitude, I believe, is where my blessings lie. Like the biggest blessings come from simply just being grateful and thankful for what you already have, like living in the moment that you already have. I learned, or I'm learning how selfish it is sometimes to not practice gratitude and not give thanks for where I am, because I'm consistently focused on where I want to be, right? So I spent 2018 really just living in the moment. And like, I didn't have a lot of goals. I read an article at the beginning of 2018 that said to not have goals is a goal, right? Because whatever is for you, like my spirit will tell me when to move, when that's my door, when to keep it closed, all of that. I'm learning to trust my gut, and in trusting the gut, that is trusting, the God on the inside. And so, yeah, so gratitude. And then number two, I think motherhood. Now my daughter is a young adult. She turned 21 in August, right? I was a 16-year-old mother. Another fun fact. And my daughter has already accomplished some things that I didn't accomplish. She is 21 and she is not a mother. She graduated from high school with a high school diploma. I have a GED, and my daughter is special needs. So she graduated from high school and got a high school diploma in special ed. Right. So then that was learning, like, wow, that strength that you have, you really invested that, like, into your seed. Like your garden is growing. I'm not the only one growing. Like my seed is evolving and growing, and that is extremely powerful to me. And so number three, the gratitude, God goes with the gratitude, by the way. That's all. Number one, motherhood. Number two, number three, I'd have to say maybe just my external factors of peace. I learned that people be like, oh my God, I'm looking for peace. I need peace. I learned that you have to create it. And I think the test that God has given me to create peace is to live in this little bitty apartment complex with a bunch of residents in their 20s. I'm almost 40. And so it's a lot of door slamming, a lot of arguing, a lot of fighting, a lot of stumping, a lot of music playing that I can't stand when I'm trying to sleep. And so I had to learn how to put my little Bluetooth speaker on with my meditation music. Like, oh, okay, well, you can listen to yours and I'm going to listen to mine, except mine is going to put me to sleep. And then by the time I wake up to turn it off, it's usually quiet. When I'm not doing that, then I'm burning sage or Palo Santo in my little abalone shell bowl. And I'm just peaceful these days. This is probably the most peace that I've had, like, ever. And I'm grateful for that, but I have learned that it's something that I had to create. And yeah, and I think when you create it, then the peace just follows you. I realize that people gravitate to me sometimes because they need peace. So yeah, there's 3.
That was a dope list, especially me putting you on the spot like that.
There's 3. And I think once you have those things, then, the sky's the limit. You can basically make anything happen. That's the recipe for magic for me. Prayer, meditation, being a, what's the word I want to use? Being a sacrificial and a dedicated mother, because some mothers don't. They just be like, oh, whatever, child, you on your own, and I'm gonna go over here and I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do, and you make it work. But I'm grateful for what's inside of me, because I come from a lineage of women that have made those types of decisions. So I am grateful. So even in my struggles and my trauma, be strong enough to raise my daughter in a way where, yes, she has had some painful and traumatic experiences, but that is life, right? That is kind of the cycle of life. But I haven't traumatized her for life. Hopefully not.
I don't think so. Someone is constantly working towards
Hopefully not.
self-improvement.
Right. Hopefully not. She's at that age where she's like, I want to be with grandma, and that's it. I don't want to be bothered with you. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe it's the season for you and grandma then. Don't be bothered with me. So I'm just, when she needs something though, right, then yeah, then she wants to be bothered with me, right? I'm like, do you like me? Do you love me? Yeah, mom. Yeah, okay. I'm just checking to make sure, you're not traumatized for life.
With parents, if you're gonna blame them for the bad, you gotta blame them for the good.
For the good. Absolutely. Yep.
So for folks listening, we do want to take a moment to acknowledge that if you're listening to this on the actual day the episode's released, then that is Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And we just want to take a moment to acknowledge that legacy and wish you a happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And, before we started the episode, we were talking about that and, just wanted to know if you had any reflections or anything that comes up for you around this day.
It's always a very nostalgic day. And there are things that I've learned to celebrate all the time. And so holidays are very far behind me, right? And because they are far behind me, like, I still on days like MLK Day, right? We'll use that one for an example. There's always definitely a reflective period throughout that day. And so, yeah, but not just that day though, right? But there's definitely always that reflective period. I don't know how you cannot reflect when things are front and center, right? When it's right in your face, and you're the social media guru or, whatever. You're scrolling and that's all you're seeing when you're scrolling. There's no way you cannot reflect and acknowledge, not unless you get offline. And I'm not. I ain't getting offline. So I reflect and I acknowledge. It's always a very nostalgic day, though, those types of holidays. For me, February is another, it's just nostalgic. We celebrate these things all year, but it's just more reflective. The spirit that those days give off just makes me a little more reflective on how MLK specifically just fought for the things that he believed. Yeah, the acts of courage. Because most of us, let's be honest, some of us are that courageous, but a lot of us could take a lesson of courage from those speeches, right? Because there are a lot. He said a lot, and he did a lot. I feel like everything he spoke about, his vision, his dream, his plan to, bring equality to the African American race. His talk, they always aligned. Like, we can't just be talkers of change, right? We also have to be doers of change. I just want to do more. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I just want to do more. And as much as, we make noise to do more, I'm learning that sometimes you can do more and not make noise. I don't even know if that makes sense to people, but you can still create change and not make a whole lot of noise. Sometimes it's that still voice, it's that quiet voice that creates a multitude of change. So I think as an artist, as a Black woman, I have learned that sometimes I have to be the softest voice in the room because they expect me to be the loudest voice in the room. And that soft voice can still create change. We all have to find our own voice to speak out against the injustices or the inequalities that matter to us. Yeah.
Thank you for that reflection.
Every change agent isn't radical.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, this is for people that don't feel like they're radical.
Mm-hmm.
You can still create change.
Yes, indeed. We all have unique gifts that we can use.
Yeah.
And that's what community is. All of us activating those gifts.
Yes. Numbers.
And speaking of community and an opportunity to come together, this Sunday, the 27th of January, is going to be the next live and online expression session. And Tira will be the feature
Woo!
is confirmed.
Yes.
So if y'all haven't been there before, what it is we start off with a writing workshop. And our theme is going to be so amazing. I'm going to save it as a surprise, but we just selected it before we started the interview. And I love it. It's one of the coolest ones. It's going to be a great way to start the year. It is at noon Pacific Standard Time, which means if you're on the West Coast, you are going to be at noon. 2 p.m. if you are Central Time, for instance, Chicago or Milwaukee. 3 p.m. if you're on the East Coast, for instance, Florida, New York. And I believe that'll be, 8 p.m. if you're in Nigeria, 8 p.m. if you're in London. So we hope you will come join us and experience the expression session. You can join anywhere in the world by phone or by email. And all of that can be found once again in the show notes, TimeRel.com/TIRA. This has been such an amazing opportunity to come together and, really get to learn more about what you're doing in the world and your creativity. So I want to really thank you for sharing your gifts with us. I appreciate it so much.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure and an honor. Thank you for allowing me to express myself in this space. This has been a very pleasant experience.
Thank you. We have one ritual we use to conclude, and that is, I'd like to ask, what is your invitation to those listening? What would you like to invite them to consider, to think about, to be, to do? What is your invitation to them?
Wow, Tom. How many people have gone speechless on this, right? I would like to invite the people that are listening into the mindset of wholeness. You deserve to be whole, not 3/5, not 1/2, not a quarter of a tank, whole. Yeah.
I mean, well said. Thank you once again. I really appreciate it so very much. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And thank you.
My pleasure. And to all those listening, as always, we're wishing you peace and blessings. Thank you. One more thing. I'd love to continue the conversation. Feel free to join me at TomEarl.com/join. Subscribe below, or let's connect on social media. Tom Earl Artist. Thanks again for watching.